How's it going, guys? Priest in here. Just gonna do a quick little beginner guide for Shadow Priest. Just kind of talk about how the spec works, just the basics of it. Not gonna go into like specifics on like talents, simming, or whatever. All that stuff is extremely subject to change. I'm mostly gonna just cover core mechanics. Hopefully, if you're wanting to try Shadow. Um, this will help you out, or if you're thinking about playing a Shadow Priest, or you want to play it as an off-spec or something like that, hopefully this will help you. So, I'll just cover some of the basics, I guess. I'm not going to cover covenants. That's a whole nother thing. But, so, number one is just, like, why play a Shadow Priest, I suppose? Like, what are some of the cool things about Shadow that may want to draw you to this class? So, obviously it's a very cool thematic character, so that's obviously something, but they bring a lot of utility as well, and one of the main utilities they bring is mass dispel. So you can AoE dispel your party members and raid members. With this, it can also dispel things that are normally undispellable. So in PvP, they can dispel paladin bubbles, it can dispel ice blocks, things like that, that are normally not dispellable. So it has some really good use there. Shadow specifically has a good silence. This is a very long cooldown for interrupt, but it counts as a silence, which means that if they're like a mob is far away, it doesn't have to be interrupted. You can actually silence it beforehand and bring it over that way. So that's good. They get some nice little party heals with Vampiric Embrace. Anytime you use any sort of utility ability as a Shadow Priest, you generate a where is it? Actually, it's hallucinations. Sorry, I was hovering over the wrong passive. Anytime you pick up a new class, the first thing you should do is always check these passives, because this will kind of give you an idea for the give you a general idea of what your class mechanics are, more so than almost anything else. So hallucinations is a nice little thing where if you cast a successful dispel magic, purify disease, so you can help dispel diseases even on Shadow. You can generate a little insanity, which is your resource. So I'll talk a bit about just generally. That's just, I wanted to get that out of the way because it's just a little cool thing I like about Shadow. But overall, what do you do as a Shadow Priest? Well, you are similar to like a Warlock. You're kind of a damage over time class. You've got your two main damage over time spells, which is Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch. Vampiric Touch having a short cast time and heals you for a little bit of the damage, and Shadow Word Pain just doing some instant cast and doing some damage. So you can cast Shadow Word Pain on the move, no problem. Vampiric Touch has a short cast time, and so you can multi-dot targets, get some nice spread damage going out. And you'll see here that I generate this purple bar here, and obviously you'll have your own UI setups and stuff. But that purple bar is called your insanity meter. And unlike in previous expansions, where the insanity meter was kind of completely different, but not to get too into that, you spend insanity by default on Devouring Plague, which I have proc right now, which I'll just click off. Which costs 50 insanity. So if you see here, I'm at 50 insanity. So as long as I have at least 50 insanity, I can cast Devouring Plague. And Devouring Plague does a good bit of initial shadow damage and then an additional dot over 6 seconds. And you also heal for 50% of this damage, so it can be sort of useful to self-heal as well. This is going to be your main focus, is keeping your damage over time. And so these dots, they generate you insanity when they tick. You see there, it generates 4 insanity on tick, generates 5 insanity on tick. So having your dots up is going to be important, because it's going to generate you insanity. So like your whole goal is to get as much Devouring Plague out as possible, because that's where most of your damage comes from. Your other spells you've got Mind Flay and you've got Mind Blast. So these are just kind of your basics. So you keep your dots up. Mind Blast, it's just a short cast time spell that does initial damage and generates insanity. So you can see here, I will main blast, and it'll generate me a little bit of insanity, and you'll see these ghosts appear. I'll get into that in a little bit. You also have Mind Flay, and this will generate just is sort of your filler spell. So if you can't, basically, both of your dots are up, and you hit your Mind Blast, and you're thinking about what else you need to do, you do a Mind Flay. Pretty much it. That's kind of the idea. Now you'll notice I've started throwing some ghosts out and stuff like that, and that's just this here, not Dark Thoughts, Shadowy Apparitions. Whenever you use Mind Flay, or I'm sorry, not Mind Flay, Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, or Void Bolt, which I'll get to in a second, you create a shadowy version of yourself that floats towards the target. Floats to all targets affected by Vampiric Touch, dealing shadow damage. Criticals will cause 2 apparitions. So if I just cast Mind Blast, see there, I didn't crit. Oh, I didn't have my dot up. So it only affects things with this dot. If you have Shadow Word Pain, see, I'll put Pain up on this one, and Vampiric Touch on this one, and I Mind Blast. It's only going to send 1 ghost towards that target. But if I have Vampiric Touch on all of them, and I throw a Mind Blast, you see it sends ghosts at all of them. And if you crit with the Mind Blast, it'll actually send 2 per target. So your Vampiric Touch is the stronger of these 2 dots, or it's the most important, because it helps your ghosts, and the ghosts do a good bit of damage, and there's talents which will give them extra insanity gen, and it can kind of snowball. So that's that. So yeah, you basically just keep your dots up, Mind Blast when you can. There are ways to reset Mind Blast's cooldown, and that is this here, this passive, Dark Thoughts. So Dark Thoughts, each of your shadow damage over time effects on the target. For each of your shadow damage over time effects on the target, your Mind Flay and Mind Seer have a 3% chance to trigger a Dark Thought. You think of something dirty or something, and then you get to Mind Blast them. So basically, increases the number of charges of Mind Blast by 1. Mind Blast can be cast instantly and cast while channeling Mind Flay or Mind Seer. So Mind Seer, by the way, is pretty much the same thing as Mind Flay. It's just an AoE version of it. It's worth noting you can cast Mind Seer on a friendly target to radiate AoE around them. So if you're having trouble, like if you have a tank that's just zooming all over the place, you can target the tank and Mind Seer around the tank, so you're radiating AoE around the tank instead of whatever mob. So you can do that. Basically, if there's 3 or more targets is pretty much enough to do a Mind Seer versus a Mind Flame. That's kind of, general AoE rule of thumb. And the proc chance will make your next Mind Blast instant cast and usable while channeling your spell, and it grants it an additional charge, which means that if it was like 1 second off of coming off of cooldown, it doesn't feel like a wasted reset, essentially. So I'll just throw some dots out so y'all can see that. So the more dots you've got going on, so then I can do a Mind Blast, and then I can start channeling Mind Seer, and it's going to hit all of them, and I should proc a free Mind Blast. There we go, and you can see it has 2 charges, and I can just use it right away. Right? Pretty simple stuff. Just kind of tab target through these, and so yeah, Devouring Plague will cause those ghosts to appear as well. I typically like to Mind Blast into Mind Flay or Mind Seer, because that's what's going to trigger the reset of that ability. So usually just works out, and you can see it. It's just usable right away. And you can cast it while that bar is still there. You can still cast it, which is pretty nice. So you don't have to cancel cast your Mind Flay or Seer. Now, it's kind of the basics there. I'll go into Void Form in a minute, but it's worth noting your Mastery gives you % increased damage per dot on the target. So you can see here, it says I have about, at my current Mastery, I have 9%, right? Mastery is not typically what I'm stacking personally, but it could be good. But it's worth knowing, even though if it's not your main stat, what it does, because it does affect it. So basically, I have 9% mastery. It's 9% damage per dot on the target, so it's like 9 times 3. So it adds up pretty quick. So if I have 1, you can see that if I Mind Blast, it's for about 2,000. If I have both dots on the target, you'll see it should hit a bit harder. Yes, 2,300. If I get Devouring Plagues going, let's see what we can hit. About 4,000. So, obviously you'll see that, like, while you have your dots up... Oh, that might have been because of my legendary. We'll get into that later. But you do more damage when you have all your dots up. It's just kind of a thing. And if you have, like, your big dot, you're going to do even more. Now, let's talk about Void Form. So Void Form is kind of like your core cooldown, I guess. It is a 1.5 minute cooldown, and this is Void Eruption. And what this will do is it has a 1.3 second cast time, 1.5 minute cooldown. You basically do an old school Shadow Bolt volley and shoot Shadow Bolts at everything in front of you, or around the target that you cast it on, and it sends you into Void Form. And when you're in Void Form, this button becomes Void Bolt. So when you have Void Bolt active, it's just basic. Essentially, just think of it as a instant cast Mind Blast on a 3.8 second cooldown. It doesn't get reset by anything, but when you have when you cast it, it will extend it. It'll help refresh your dots. It won't full refresh them, but it'll extend it by 3 seconds. So, and when you're in Void Form, so if you look at Void Form's passive here, being in Void Form increases the spell damage you deal by 20%, gives you an additional charge of Mind Blast, and when you enter Void Form, it resets Mind Blast's cooldown. So you can kind of see, if I do something like this, like I've got dots on everything, I hit my Mind Blast, I pop into Void Form, I start shooting Void Bolts, I'll start generating just like tons of insanity, and you'll see all these ghosts going nuts. And this, like, you just get all these Mind Blasts and Devouring Plagues and all of that stuff going on. I'm only using Mind Flay here, and yeah. So you can see right there, you get, that's kind of it. It only lasts for about 15 seconds or so. I think it's 15 seconds. Oops, where is it? I don't know. I think it's 15 seconds. Regardless. Yeah, 15 seconds. And in that form, you do 20% more damage, and that's 20% more damage with everything. So, like, if you have a trinket that does extra spell damage, you can use it during Void Form, and it'll do more stuff like that. You can pool up your insanity for Void Form as well. Like, if you know you're about to have Void Form come off of cooldown, Devouring Plague costs 50, but you can hold up to 100. So if you're, you don't want to overcap, but, like, say get to like 85 or so, or at least get to 50, and don't immediately do it if you're, maybe hold it for a Void Form, so you can kind of get more use out of the Void Form's damage increase. So that's kind of the basics. So the basics, just like layman's terms, throw your dots up, hit your Mind Blast, blow their mind, and then, hit them with the Wiggly, and then if you see Mind Blast come off cooldown, hit it again. Oh yeah, you have Shadow Word Death too. Whenever they get low health, you can use Shadow Word Death to do some initial damage. You'll see there. If you... Shadow Word Death is an instant cast spell with a 17-second cooldown. I think it's 20 seconds reduced by haste. That does a bit of initial damage, and it does extra damage if they're below 20% health. It's really worth using if they're below 20% health. It still can be used if they're not. Pretty much only good if you're, like, on the move, though. Something to keep in mind with this spell, however, is that if it is not the killing blow, it will also damage you. And you can see there that it actually damaged me pretty hard, because This is like a low health or a lower level enemy. So if you're farming old raids, it's just funny, like, careful with Shadow Word Death. Or if you're in Torghast, you get like a bunch of Shadow Word Death like things. It'll hit you pretty hard. So keep that in mind. Like if you're like about to die, you can actually kill yourself with Shadow Word Death. So that covers pretty much all the regular abilities. You've got Dispersion, which is a personal defensive cooldown. You can hit it, you run a little bit faster while you're in Dispersion, and you take less damage. 75% reduced damage and increased movement speed, which is, and you're unable to attack during this time. So you've got that. So let's see, did I miss anything? Not really. That's your shadow tree. Make sure you understand you still have like your main priest abilities, so like fade. If for some reason you're pulling aggro, you can fade. Leap of faith. If somebody's standing in the fire, you can grab them, pull them towards you. Mind vision. It's kind of more of a flavor spell than anything else. Desperate prayer is a personal cooldown, which gives you an additional 25% health for 10 seconds. It's essentially a 25% heal. It's a bit different. It's a temporary heal. Levitate, if you're jumping off a cliff, you cannot die with Levitate. Mind Control has lots of fun utility. It's pretty niche, but it's good to have. Probably not worth in a beginner guide. But Power Infusion. So this is something, if your Shadow, haste is very strong for you, so pretty much use it on yourself is fine. But you can actually Power Infuse anybody. So if you're like, you're about to die and you want to help out, you can throw a Power Infusion on another DPS, and they can do more damage. You've obviously got your stamina buff. Power Word Shield is very strong. Like I said, casting Power Word Shield will give you insanity if you're in combat. It doesn't do it when you're not in combat. Because from the hallucinations, casting any of the spells listed here will generate you 6 insanity in combat. So it's like Purify, so dispelling a disease, mass dispelling, debuffs, anything like that will give you 6 insanity when cast during combat. So if I put myself in combat here, and then I cast Power Word Shield, you see I just generate a little bit of insanity there. Now you can't spam it because obviously you have this, but if you're ever like in combat here, I'll just like slap this, and you can't be attacking the boss. Let's like pretend I can't be attacking the boss. I can throw Power Word Shields on myself and other people, and I don't think I can actually do that. Oh, I can. And you can generate yourself a little bit of insanity if for some reason you can't like attack a boss or something. It also helps heal out, help heal, because it's an absorb, which means you can like pre-heal people. Psychic Scream. This is listed in AoE Fear that all priests have access to. Shackle Undead. You can basically crowd control Undead. All that stuff. So I'm going to let's look at the talents. Now, talents is going to be one of those things that for priest, we can move around our talents pretty well. A lot of them are good in different situations. So your first row, Fortress of the Mind, is going to be pretty much your go-to single target spell or single target talent in most situations, which just gives you 10% Mind Flay and Mind Blast damage, and those spells generate 20% more insanity. So it's just pretty strong overall. Next to that, we have Death and Madness. This improves your Shadow Word Death. So if a target dies within 7 seconds of casting Shadow Word Death, so it puts I'll just pick it real quick. So it puts a debuff on the target that you see here, and if it dies with that debuff on, you will generate 40 insanity over 4 seconds, and the cooldown gets reset. So if you're doing a dungeon or you're doing solo content or something like that, or even some boss fights with a lot of ads, a lot of like little quick ads that you can get a lot of use out of this, a lot of uptime with the insanity generation. You can potentially get a lot of value out of it. It's also it's very good in solo content because you can just like if you're leveling or doing world quests or something like that, 40 insanity is practically a free devouring plague, so you can like run up, Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, Shadow Word Death, move on to the next one, just keep doing it. It's pretty fun. Unfurling Darkness. Unfurling. After casting Vampiric Touch on a target, your next Vampiric Touch within 8 seconds is instant cast and deals 2,000 shadow damage instantly. This effect has a 15-second cooldown, so you can see there that this helps you get your Vampiric Touches out much faster. Right, so I just did all 3 there because that one was instant cast. So you can see there that that talent has some good use there. So, you know, some good variation on the first tier. Second tier, this is a utility tier. So you have Body and Soul. This is the one I usually go with. I don't typically move out of Body and Soul because priests don't have any movement abilities really besides baseline, besides Dispersion, and I typically want to save that for making myself not die. What this does is it gives your Power Word Shield a 40% run speed for 3 seconds, so you can run a little bit faster. And you can have Power Word Shield up pretty often. You can also give Power Word Shield to other party members, so if somebody needs to run out with a mechanic, you can throw them a Power Word Shield. They can run to where they need to go faster, and it gives them a little bit of healing. So it's a very good utility ability, Body and Soul is. Sane Lane, those vampire elf people, reduces the cooldown of Vampiric Embrace by 45 seconds, increases the healing done by 25%. So Vampiric Embrace is a 2-minute cooldown that you have, which will cause your single target shadow damage abilities to heal nearby allies for 85% of the damage it does. It doesn't heal everyone, it heals one person at a time. So like this person's hurt, so say you like hit a Mind Blast for 1,000 damage, you'll heal somebody in your raid for 800, 500 damage, right? Or yeah, 850 damage, something like that. That's how that works. It can actually be really good, and if you're really needing that extra support healing, Sand Lane may give you some value there, but typically I go Body and Soul. Intangibility, this improves your Dispersion, it adds a heal effect to Dispersion, so that heals 50% of your max health over duration and reduces the cooldown by 30 seconds. So if you want better on-demand defensives, go with Intangibility. If you want more general movement and stuff, go with Body and Soul. And if you want to help out your party, go Sand Lane. Now, the level 30 tier is probably one that I personally move around a lot because I don't know, I find these interesting. So Twist of Fate, that's going to be kind of your go-to in a single target boss situation. What this ability does is it gives you a buff for 10% damage when you damage something that's lower than 35% health. So on boss fights, this is really good because it's just a 10% damage bonus when you get to 35% health. Because it's a buff on yourself that lasts for 8 seconds, if a boss has any adds, you can cleave on them and get the buff on yourself and then pump that damage into the boss. And potentially you can cleave the adds, build up a bunch of insanity, and then with the buff, pump all of that into Devouring Plague, which is very fun for me to do on certain fights. Misery, so that's going to be generally good. Misery is also very, very good. It helps you just get your dots out that much faster. What it does is, instead of casting Vampiric Touch and then Shadow Word Pain to put up both of your dots, if you take this talent, it basically means you don't have to use Shadow Word Pain. Should still keep it on your bar because you'll see here they have different durations, and obviously, so what it does is it causes Vampiric Touch to also apply Shadow Word Pain. So I can just go like this, and this. And that saved me 3 globals because it got Shadow Word Pain on the target as well. So tab targeting with that is very good. So it's very good for if you have lots of adds that are spread out and you want to get dots out on them really quickly. But like I said, it's not like you don't want to take Shadow Word Pain off your bar because, you know, you need something to do on the move, right? So you can't quite just take it off your bar. Now, Searing Nightmare, this is going to be your stacked AoE talent, and this is a very fun one. And I'll just move my bars around a little. All right, there we go. So Searing Nightmare, this is an active ability, and it costs 30 Insanity, and it... So you see it's a long tooltip here, but basically what it does is you push this while channeling Mind Sear, so while you're channeling your AoE, you can hit Searing Nightmare, to giving that target a nightmare, and it will infect everything it hits. Like, basically everything your Mind Sear hits will get Shadow Word Pain applied to it, and it does a bunch of initial shadow damage. And if they already have Shadow Word Pain, it does double damage. So what you can do is, you'll see here, I can channel it, hit it again, and it'll hit it even harder, right? So boom, 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 boom. You see here, it costs about 30, so boom. So it's like, it's really good for throwing out those Shadow Word Pains on everything. But if you have like a bunch of stacked ads, you hit this and you just like spam Searing Nightmare, and you see you hit it while you're channeling. So you can see this, and then like once I'm at 30 Insanity here, I push it while I'm channeling Mind Sear. I think it's a really fun spell. Alright, so that's that talent tier. So 35, you have Last Word, Mind Bomb, and Psychic Horror. This is a utility tier. Last Word just reduces the cooldown of silence by 15 seconds, so if you need more interrupts, you know, go with that. Mind Bomb, I don't like this talent personally, but it's pretty useful. I can see where it could be useful. So what Mind Bomb does is it replaces Psychic Scream. So Psychic Scream is a 1-minute cooldown AoE fear that is centered on you. Mind Bomb replaces that ability with a 30-second cooldown, so it does reduce the cooldown. And it inflicts the target with a Mind Bomb after 2 seconds, or if the target... by the way, don't be confused with if you played in Legion. This is a very different version of the Legion version of Mind Bomb. Anyway, after 2 seconds, or if the target dies, it will unleash a Psychic Explosion, disorienting all enemies within 8 yards of the target. So basically, yeah, Psychic Scream also counts as a disorient. What this does is it, instead of putting the fear on you, it puts it on your target. Now, what I don't like about this is the 2-second delay. So you can see, like, when I hit Psychic Scream, I get my fear the second I hit it, like, instantly. I have CC'd those things. So if you're trying to interrupt a cast or something, it goes like this. This you have to think 2 seconds ahead, and then it'll fear the enemies around that, or disorient them. I guess it is. It's not an AoE stun. Don't be fooled. Now, Psychic Horror, this is what I go, because I like to have on demand. CC, this is an additional single target stun for 4 seconds on a 45-second cooldown. If you just want a passive, you can go with that. I know some people just hate having buttons, but yeah, Psychic Horror, right when you push the button, stuns them in place for 4 seconds. But yeah, this is just a full utility tier. Love to see it. Now, the level 40 tier. This is another interesting tier. For single target, you're gonna go with Auspicious Spirits, most likely. And this is going to cause your shadowy apparitions to deal 15% increased damage and generate 2 insanity. Now, it's 2 insanity per ghost. So, those are the little spirits you create whenever you use either Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, or Void Bolt. And this will just give you... those ghosts will do extra damage, but you really care about is the insanity. The ghosts themselves do... reasonable damage, and with certain conduits and stuff, you can make them hit pretty hard, but I'm not going to get into that. So that's going to be most cases your single target talent. Still pretty good for cleave as well, because ghosts do hit everything that has your dots on them, so it's pretty good just generally speaking. Psychic Link, this is one that pairs very well with Fortress of the Mind. So, Psychic Link causes Mind Blast Mind Blast deals 50% of its damage to all other targets affected by Vampiric Touch within 40 yards. Now, this is a very strong talent, but it is completely useless if there's only one target. So if you are limited to only one target, this talent won't do anything for you, right? So if I'm only fighting this guy, like, so if I pick Psychic Link and I only fight this one here in the middle, right? Here, let me reset my data. So if I only fight this one and I hit Mind Blast, I'm like, all right, I have Psychic Link. It's not hitting anything else, right? It's just Mind Blast. But the moment I've got these going on multiple targets, you'll see when I Mind Blast, it hits all of them, right? So you see here we have Psychic Link. Psychic Link did 2,000 damage there. So, you know, you can see where this becomes very good on targets where you're able to multi-dot. Shadow Crash. Shadow Crash is another active ability and a short cooldown, 25 seconds. When it's green like that, it usually means it's reduced by haste. I think it is like 25 seconds is reduced to 20, or it's 30 reduced to 25 via my haste. Hurls a bolt of slow-moving shadow energy at the target destination, dealing shadow damage to all targets within 8 yards and generating 15 insanity. Now, picking Shadow Crash, let's just put it here, and we'll put that there for now. Shadow Crash is one of these targeted AoEs. It's instant cast, and you can throw it around, and it'll do damage to everything in that circle. And it generates insanity. Now, the 15 insanity is not too shabby, so even on single target, it's not too bad, just because the insanity generates is really strong, you know? So definitely worth. Sometimes it can actually generate more insanity than the spirits on a single target. So all these talents are pretty strong, and Shadow Crash can hit extremely hard if you have stacked AoE. So like going Searing Nightmare with Shadow Crash is just like the full stack AoE build, right? So let's see here. So level 45 tier. So this is going to be one where it kind of goes up to what patch you watch this video on, right? As for like how good each talent is, because these are all very DPS oriented talents. But I'll just cover what they do. So Damnation instantly afflicts the target with Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague, and it is an instant cast, 45-second cooldown, costs no insanity, so it's just a free Devouring Plague. This is very nice. You can use this to just like instantly dot something up, which can be very nice in certain situations. You can also save this cooldown for Void Form. It's 45 seconds, so 1.5 minute cooldown for Void Form. You can pretty much have this up every Void Form. You can have it up every Void Form. It's like use it like once in Void Form, once without. I may have to sit on it once. I forget how it lines up exactly, and casting it in Void Form is just like a whole free other Devouring Plague. So very strong. Mindbender. I can't believe I didn't cover this. I didn't talk about Shadow Fiend earlier, but this is just a 3-minute cooldown you have baseline. The Shadow Fiend is, honestly, I think they need to redesign it because it really doesn't do much. You just kind of summon it, it generates you a little bit of insanity when it attacks, and that's kind of it. It's really unimpactful. The Mindbender improves this Shadow Fiend, turning it into a Mindbender with a 1-minute cooldown down from a 3-minute cooldown. The Mindbender itself deals more damage and generates more insanity with its attacks. You can see the Shadow Fiend generates 3 on each attack, 3 insanity each attack, and the Mindbender generates 5 on each attack. So that's pretty much all there is about those abilities. Anyway, Void Torrent. So Void Torrent is a channeled spell with a 30-second cooldown that generates 60 insanity over the duration. So it's basically, think of it like the Thick Boy Mind Flay. You'll just see it here. I'll just do it. Just go like that. Does a bunch of damage, generates you 60 insanity, which is enough for a Devouring Plague. So there you go. You can save it for void form if you want to get that 20%, although its cooldown is pretty short. Though you should be able to have it up in void form. Doesn't really matter though, you know, it's just really good. Lots of insanity generation. Okay, so that's that talent row. Well, actually, you know what? We'll grab Damnation just to show you how, you know, boom, there it is, Damnation. Isn't that cool? Maybe we'll do the Mind Bender at some point. So, now, for the final talent row. Now, some of this will determine, you know, which one's better for you. Might be a bit dependent on which covenant you went with, or whatever. But Ancient Madness, so Void Form increases your critical strike chance by 30% for 15 seconds, reducing by 2% every second you're in Void Form. So it's like you get the full 30% crit chance at like the first second of Void Form, and then it goes like down to like, you know, 28, then to, you know, every second it goes down, you know, 28, 26, 24. 22%, you know, it goes down the longer you're in it, but like, you know, this is a fun one for like if you're going Auspicious Spirits. You know, that can be pretty fun. Like you can go like this build here, and then you can just like, you know, throw all your dots up, and then go into Void Form, and then just like have a freaking crap ton of ghosts just going everywhere. That's a fun build, let me tell you. Because like I said, when you crit, you create 2 ghosts. So having the Ancient Madness talent pairs pretty well with Auspicious Spirits, granting, you know, even more ghosts essentially, because you're gonna get more crits when you have this, so you're going to get more ghosts, which means you're going to get more insanity, which means you can put more Devouring Plague, which gives you more ghosts, so it just kind of snowballs, and that's fun. Hungering Void, this one creates, this one also infects your Void Form. This one, all these talents kind of affect Void Form in a way. So, Hungering Void causes Void Bolt to put a debuff on the target, causing them to take 10% more damage for 6 seconds. So this is just kind of like a 10% flat damage increase to the main target you hit Void Bolt with, because Void Bolt is not an AoE, so potentially this is better for AoE, potentially this is better for single target, right? So casting Void Bolt on an enemy that this vulnerability already exists extends the Void Form duration by 1 second, or by 2 seconds if Void Bolt critically strikes. So crit's still good. Crit is very good for Shadow Priest, so you want crit haste typically, or haste crit, kind of. But sim your character to be sure. And then finally we have Surrender to Madness. And this is a fun ability, always been fun. Obviously, it's not as crazy as it was back in Legion, but it's still an interesting ability, and we'll go ahead and pick it just for demonstration purposes and for funsies. What this is it's an instant cast, 1.5 minute cooldown, deals 2,000 shadow damage to the target, and activates Void Form. For the next 25 seconds, your insanity generating abilities generate 100% more insanity, and you can cast while moving. If the target does not die within 25 seconds of using Surrender to Madness, you die. Unavoidable. So, uses for this could be a particular ad you need to burst down, or like, you know, you can use this on an ad, and as long as that ad dies, you know, this essentially gives you a second Void Form you can use, right? So you'll see here I can activate my regular Void Form and still play, you know, normally, doing my thing, you know. Oh no, my Void Form ended. Why don't I just reactivate it with Surrender to Madness? And I can just move while casting, which is fun. So yeah, fights with like really high movement, this could be really good for. And you can see here, I still have it going. You can hear the heartbeats coming as we tick down and we die. And you can just see here, death recap by details. Oh, we have no idea what killed us. Yeah, you just die. So that's that spell, and it's got a pretty short cooldown. So potentially it could be useful in a dungeon. You know, kill and add. You can see here. Oh no, that's just that's just honorless target. It's nothing. So that's pretty much all the basics. As far as like legendaries and stuff go, this is kind of like Eternal Call of the Void. That's kind of like the one that most people suggest that you get. I kind of disagree personally. Like this one sims slightly higher, but I've had some success with other legendaries as well, like the Star Gem. But personally, I just prefer non-RNG dependent damage, and these two sim pretty closely. So I went with no RNG versus RNG. But if you want something that's just totally passive and, you know, sims pretty well, go ahead and go for Call of the Void. You know, or whatever you want. Because, I don't know what kind of content you're trying to do, but, you know, have fun with it. You know, go ahead and call the creatures of the void to do your building and, you know, come hang out in the Priest Order Hall and you know, we can summon the old gods, Cthulhu. So, hopefully this video has been slightly informative, at least, and I wasn't too annoying. And with that, I will leave you. I will bid you farewell.